chapter 1, verses 1 to 14. Let's read it together and see where we end. Paul, writing now this letter, the second letter to Timothy, writes these words. Paul, an apostle of Christ Jesus, by the will of God, according to the promise of the life that is in Christ Jesus. To Timothy, my beloved child, grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and Christ Jesus our Lord. Guard the deposit entrusted to you. I thank God whom I serve, as did my ancestors, with a clear conscience, as I remember you constantly in my prayers, night and day. As I remember your tears, I long to see you, that I may be filled with joy. I'm reminded of your sincere faith, the faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure dwells in you as well. For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Therefore, do not be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord, nor of me his prisoner, but share in suffering for the gospel by the power of God, who saved us and called us to a holy calling, not because of our works, but because of his own purpose and grace, which he gave us in Christ Jesus before the ages began, and which now has been manifested through the appearing of our Savior, Christ Jesus, who abolished death and brought life and immortality to life through the gospel, for which I was appointed a preacher, an apostle, and a teacher, which is why I suffer as I do. But I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed. And I am convinced that he is able to guard until that day what has been entrusted to me. Follow the pattern of the sound words that you have heard from me, in the faith and love that are in Christ Jesus, by the Holy Spirit who dwells within us. Guard the good deposit entrusted to you. Let's pray together. God, for each opportunity that we have to come together around your word, we are grateful. And for the challenge that it lays out, we are both grateful and maybe even anxious at times because of our realization that there is much for us to do and much for us to live up to. And I pray that you be present in our reflections this morning, that we would be very aware of your guidance and your direction and your insight as you reveal to us what you would have us to understand. And while these words that I speak may be my words, I pray, God, that they would be your word to your people gathered in your house today, to the honor and glory of Jesus Christ, as we offer this prayer. In his name. Amen. We need to recognize that our faith needs to be very much like a fire, like a flame that provides heat and light to our own path and also into the lives of the people around us. We've all sung the song at church camp around the campfire. It only takes a spark to get a fire going. Certainly one of those songs that reminds us of that, many songs about the thing, the flame of faith and those sorts of things. And that's what I want us to think about together this morning. That our faith is very much like the fire. Just as a real fire will die without added fuel or oxygen, our faith also needs to be fueled and tended. I know when I was a kid, Grandpa had Grandma, but they had a cook stove in the living room. It wasn't there all along, but in the living room of the farmhouse, they had this old copper-clad white porcelain cook stove, and they used that for heat and for baking and cooking. At times, it wasn't they had a gas stove in the kitchen, but they did use that cook stove for a lot of things. And I remember the work that went into tending that thing, to making sure that it had wood, that it had proper ventilation, that the damp was working right, and all the work that goes into that. It's not just like, hitting the button on your electric stove and it all comes on and works perfectly. A lot of work goes into that. One of my personal favorite things to do is to sit outside on a crisp fall day and watch the fire in the fire pit. You know, just don't even have to have a hot dog on a stick, although that's a bonus. But just to have that fire going and to toss a log on or a piece of wood at any given time, and just sort of watch it work. There's something about that. It's relaxing and it's just fascinating. But our faith needs to also be fueled. Just as a fire needs wood and it needs proper airflow in order for it to have the oxygen that it needs to maintain combustion, our faith also needs to be tended. It takes work to do that. This becomes a problem, though, when we forsake things that are necessary. Our faith is fueled by a lot of things. We're going to sort of dig into that a little bit, and Paul is giving Timothy some guidance in this text today. But our faith is fueled by being constantly in the Word, by being in church, by being in fellowship with brothers and sisters, by spending time in prayer, by spending time seeking the Lord. All of these sorts of things are important in order for us to tend our faith. And we need the flame of our faith to be fanned by the ever-present guidance and direction provided by the Holy Spirit. And it's in this text. I mean, it really is right there, laid out verse by verse in this text. But this becomes a problem for us when we forsake any one of those things that is really necessary for the growth and the maintenance of our Christian faith. And the fire will begin to die down. We've all heard the illustration of the pastor that takes a coal out of the fireplace and sets it aside. What happens when it's off by itself, lonely? It begins to grow cold. But if you take that very same coal and put it back in the fire, what happens? It begins to glow again. It begins to have all of the things that are necessary in order for it to have the heat of the flame and to provide all that's necessary for it to do its thing. We also need to be maintained. We need to work sometimes to maintain our faith. Timothy, the reason I like Paul's letters to Timothy, I like all of Scripture, but especially am drawn to these two letters to Timothy is because I find a lot of myself reflected in those books. Timothy faced similar struggles in his journey of faith and in his ministry to others of us. Timothy, for me, is a very relatable guy. You know his story, raised in a home where his father was probably not a believer. His mother was. His mother was a believer because her mother was a believer. And so it mirrors my own story to some degree. But Timothy also faced similar struggles to those that you and I face even today. And I think it makes him a very easy guy to relate to. And so Paul's encouragement to Timothy is very easily applied to our lives even today. Paul sought to encourage Timothy. Timothy is a young believer, a young pastor, and he's serving this church in Ephesus, and Paul is writing these letters to Timothy to encourage him in his ministry. And that's really sort of the basis of these two letters to Timothy from Paul. And he's telling Timothy, here's what you need to do, Timothy, is first of all to take care of your own faith. Because if your own faith is shaky, you're not going to be an encouragement or help to anyone else there in Ephesus that you're trying to minister to. So this is what he's trying to do. So what did Timothy struggle with? And are these things that you and I can relate to even today? Well, first of all, Timothy struggled with poor health. Timothy had, we don't know the particulars of it, but we do know that there's reference to stomach issues, maybe ulcers, something to that regard. But Timothy struggled with poor health. Anybody here never been sick? You know, we struggle from time to time with health concerns, don't we? It's very real. and it takes the wind out of our sails when we're able to do that. Most of you are aware, I fell at the gas station a couple weeks ago and broke some ribs, and it was brutal. It slowed me down a little bit, but it didn't slow down the need for me to be busy doing things and working in aspects of ministry, but it makes you aware of the fact that these bodies are frail and they break down sometimes, and it took its toll on me. I'm a little better now. They still make me aware of their presence sometimes, but Timothy struggled with health concerns, and you and I do. But Paul says, don't let that throw you off course. Don't let those physical ailments get in the way of you doing what God calls you to do. Timothy was young, and he was shy, and he was, I said emotional on the slide, sensitive. He was a sensitive, tender-hearted, shy, young man in ministry. And so, thinking about where Timothy's at, the Christian faith is still relatively young at this point, and Timothy is trying to be an encouragement to people, and probably he is he's among the younger people in the church in Ephesus. And so he's there, and he's in Ephesus, and he's trying to minister, and Paul, a couple times in these letters, says, don't let them hold your youth against you, Timothy. You're solid, you're in the right place, you had good instruction, you're being faithful. Don't let them hold your youth against you. This is another reason that I used to be able to relate to Timothy more than I can now. When I first started in pastoral ministry, I was 29 years old when I had my first full-time pastoral position. Prior to that, I did ministry for several years in an associate role. But when I was the first sort of solo pastor, starting in Stonington, I was 29 years old. And that was, I was usually one of the youngest people in the room. When we had a Wednesday night Bible study, I was almost without exception the youngest person in the room. When we had a Sunday morning service, I was often one of the younger people in the spectrum. And now, all these years later, I'm not the youngest person in the room anymore in any setting in ministry. And so but I remember what that was like. And I remember being at some point sort of not really despised, but it's possible despised for your youth. In other words, sort of less than fully respected, and it takes a while to earn that. But Timothy is encouraged here by Paul to say, stay the course, Timothy. Don't let them hold your youth against you. In fact, and that's something that we need to recognize. Regardless of whether we're young or old or shy or outgoing or sensitive or insensitive, we need to be bold about bearing witness to Christ. But Paul had Timothy had issues of his own to struggle with. And we all have those kind of personality issues. That's what I'm really getting at. Personality issues that impact the way we do the ministry that Christ sets before us. Timothy faced difficulties and opposition as he ministered in the church. You and I, as we do ministry in the world, are going to face difficulties. We're going to face opposition. Anybody ever had anybody sort of disagree with you because of your faith, or discount you because of your faith? It happens to me a lot. And it does happen to us. If we're faithful, if we're living out the Christian faith, guess what? It stands in direct opposition to everything that's going on in the world. And so it's gonna cause problems. It does cause problems even in the church sometimes when people hear things that they may not really want to hear. That's why certain churches and certain authors and certain high-profile pastors are so attractive to people, because they're telling them what they want to hear. That's in 2 Timothy chapter 4, and we may get there in a few weeks. But, Timothy is faced with a church that is saying, oh, you don't give us that stuff that calls us to transform our lives, that calls us to put aside things that are of personal value to us. We want what we want to hear. And Paul later says to Timothy There is going to come a time, Timothy, when people aren't going to want to listen to sound doctrine. There's going to come a time, Timothy, when people aren't going to want the truth. They're going to want myths and falsehoods, and they're going to want to be told what they want to hear. Well, that was true in Timothy's day, and it's certainly true in our world today. Sometimes, even in the church, people come into the church and they think, well, I just want to be told how great I am, and I want to be told how everything's going to be all right, and all I've got to do is keep doing what I'm doing. Well, if you came here today to hear that message, you came to the wrong church, okay? We are all astray from what God has for us, every one of us. And we have work to do to get our life back on track. But we are going to face opposition to the faith in the world and even at times in the church. Timothy's faith was authentic. Timothy had been given that faith. It was a birthright faith. He got it from his mom. He got it from her mom. He got it from Paul. And they were clearly people of faith. And that was an authentic faith. It was a real faith. Ours ought also to be that. But Timothy's struggles were real as well. And I think sometimes people are either saying it out loud or implying it. Oh, just get over it. You know what? Yes, we do need to get over it, but there are a lot of things we can't get over on our own, right? A lot of things we can't get over on our own. We can only get over it with the presence of God. And again, that's in this text. Paul is saying, know where your strength comes from, Timothy. Know it doesn't come from within you. Know that it comes from God and from Him alone. And be emboldened and empowered and strengthened by that truth to do what you're called to do. Your struggles are real, Timothy. Your struggles are real. But God is equally as powerful and equally as real and able to get you through to where you need to be. And so Paul gave Timothy some very specific instruction to keep the fire burning. And so that's where we are going to go for our remaining time together. He says, stir it up, Timothy. Stir up the gift. Don't let discouragement rule the day. If you've ever had one of those days that started out rough and just seemed like it got rougher as the day wore on, you can relate to Timothy. But Paul is saying, don't let discouragement have the last word. At the end of the day, you don't have the power to change your situation most of the time. But there is a God who is able to come alongside you and to provide the strength and encouragement and the hope and the focus and the direction to move you in the right direction. Believe me, total transparency, full disclosure, sometimes being a pastor is miserable. Because it involves people. Okay? If it was, Calvin, you get this, right? If it was just me and God and I could just take my Bible and go sit, under a shade tree somewhere and think about the things of God, it'd be wonderful. But God calls us to be in the muck and the mire of life with people, in the trenches. And He brings people into our lives for the purpose of building relationships that can get ugly sometimes and can be downright uncomfortable sometimes. But at the end of the day, and it can be discouraging sometimes. Because sometimes you feel like you're banging your head against that wall and not gaining any ground. But Paul is saying, Timothy, don't get hung up on that. Don't let discouragement rule the day. Tomorrow's another day. It's another opportunity, and it'll be better. And if not tomorrow, the next day, because God is there each step of the way. And He helps us to do what we are tasked with doing. And so 99.9% of the time, being a pastor is an amazing opportunity to see God work. But there are those days when it's just, can I just push the reset button and start over? But you know what? That's not unique to being a pastor. Being a follower of Jesus Christ is discouraging sometimes. Sometimes it's a challenge to live out your faith in the world. But Paul says, don't let that be the end of everything, Timothy. Keep the faith. Stay strong. Stay focused. Keep your eye where it needs to be, and don't let discouragement rule the day. Don't let the busyness overtake the business of God. I tried to play with those words a little bit and communicate what I'm trying to communicate here, but he said, don't get caught up on the activity, Timothy. Don't get caught up on looking busy for the crowd. Get caught up on doing what you know for sure God has called you to do. And we do that all the time, right? And I know I've mentioned this before. You want to see the people doing what they probably shouldn't do. Go to a pastor's meeting sometime. Go to a pastor's cluster meeting and let one of them ask the others. So how's it going? Oh, I'm busy. And they pull their calendar out. Yeah, I got a lot going on. Well, when can we meet again? I don't know. I've got a lot coming up here. I'm pretty important. And they start going through their calendar. I mean, they don't say I'm pretty important, but that's what they're saying. Right? I'm more important than you because I got more activity than I. You know what? Are you doing what God called you to do? Are you really focusing your energy where God wants you to focus your energy, or are you just staying busy for the appearance of activity, just to fill your calendar and justify your existence? At the end of the day, Paul says, don't settle for busyness when there is business to take care of. What does God want us to do? Seek and save the lost. Love Him and love people. That's it. That's at the end of the day what we are all called to do. And he says, Timothy, if you're doing that, everything else will fall into its proper perspective. Yeah, there will be days when it's crazy busy. But it will always be right, because you will always be given what you need to do in order to do what God wants you to do. The other thing he says is, Timothy, don't let unforgiveness and bitterness put the fire out. Don't let those people that can't be forgiving throw cold water on your fire. Don't let those people that are just always nasty to everybody continue to destroy your approach to Christ. He says, Timothy, just stay the course. There's going to be people you can't deal with. There's going to be people that are impossible for you to work around. Just do it anyway. Because God is there to provide what you need. And don't you dare let that unforgiveness and bitterness of other people infiltrate your spirit. You just keep loving them. You just keep moving in the direction you need to move. And God will take care of the rest. Now that is a lesson that we all need to learn, right? God is able to move us from a place where we are feeling, playing the victim or being just bitter and nasty all the time, to a place where we can actually show love. And God is able to move us to a place where we don't have to be drugged down by those people that are constantly trying to be a millstone around our necks. He says, Timothy, don't let worldly desires overcome you. Don't look around you at all that everybody else has got and be drawn to that. Stay heavenly minded. Stay focused on the things of God, on the things of eternity, and let those worldly desires fade away. Again, we can try to, overcomplicate the Christian faith sometimes. At the end of the day, I know many of you have heard me say this a number of times, but it really is the sum total of the Christian faith. Faced with a decision, faced with a desire, faced with a material thing, whatever it is this eternally significant? Or is this something that is here today and on tomorrow in the grand scheme of things? Those are the questions, he says, that you need to ask yourself. Is it a worldly desire? Is it something that is only going to feed my temporal need for momentary satisfaction? Or is it something that is eternally significant? Those are the questions I need to ask myself. Don't let worldly desire overcome you. And then at the end of the day, do everything you can to feed that fire. Acquire the fuel. Acquire the opportunity. Seize the moment to fuel that fire. I think of Martin Luther, who said, at the height of the Protestant Reformation, he had a few speaking engagements going on. He was highly sought after. He was in demand, and he was running from ecclesiastical authorities in the church. He's sort of the backbone of the Protestant Reformation. He's got a lot going on his plate. And at the height of the Protestant Reformation, as Luther is writing in his journals, he says, I have so much business to undertake that I cannot even begin to think of doing it without spending 6 hours daily in prayer. So busyness should not undermine the need for us to be serious about the business of our faith. Seeking God first and His righteousness, and then everything else falls into its proper perspective. So if Martin Luther needed 6 hours a day in prayer, you and I could probably benefit from a little bit too, huh? Because a few people know his name. I don't expect too many people are going to know my name years after I'm gone. 500 plus years after the Protestant Reformation began, we're still talking about the impact that one man made by spending time fueling the fire in prayer. Our resources that are available to us and free for the taking and need to be applied. There's a sending unit on the side of a Chevy motor that is it's a fuel, no, not fuel pressure. What is that sending unit? Bob, help me out. There's oil pressure switch. Thank you. You cannot change that switch without the tool to do it with. I have that tool. I've used it twice in my life. I may never need it again. But it's the only way it can be changed. And I bought it at S&L Motor Parts in Hillsboro like 25 years ago. But the thing is, the tools that are in our toolbox are there for a reason. There is no other way you can do that. The other thing I found is, specialty tools in General Motors, they're all about that. There is a special tool for removing the clip on the side of the flapper valve on the air ducts under a Chevy Trailblazer. You have to have that tool in order to do that. Or, in my case, you can take a screwdriver and bend it and get a grinder and cut a tip out of the screwdriver and make it work. But I didn't know that. And then I had a GM mechanic said, well, I could have brought that home with me from work and let you borrow it while you were doing that. Well, it's too little too late. But these specialty tools are available and useful for the purpose, but they're only good if you use them. And so these are resources that we have. Power. When we pray, we're not just throwing up desires to an uncaring God. When we pray, we are praying to the same God that Jesus Christ spoke to. We're praying to the same God that all of those prophets spoke to. We're praying to the same God that Moses spoke to when leading the children through the wilderness. We're praying to the same God that David poured out his heart to in the Psalms. We are in communion with the same God and who loves us and is able to pour His love into us and through us. And these are powerful tools. And we have the ability to be self-controlled, but not really. We have the power to be God-controlled and approach the world, looking at the world through God's eyes. And we don't always tap into that resource. But that's a phenomenal power, because Timothy couldn't do what Timothy did on Timothy's own strength. Joel can't do what Joel does on Joel's own strength. You can't do what you are called to do on your own strength. But we have the power of heaven available to us. We have the love of God available to us to flow into our life and through us into the lives of others. And we have the ability to be controlled by God and self-control in our interactions with other people. Relying on God rather than our own strength is central. That's why Luther says, I need 6 hours a day talking to God. That's why I need to spend that time in connection with God and allow His power to work through me. Because my strength is insufficient. Your strength is insufficient, but God's strength is abundance and power. I've heard reference to people saying, oh, it's good to go to church and I can, get my batteries charged, my spiritual batteries charged. Yeah, okay, maybe. But I really think a connection with God through prayer is much more like plugging into the AC current. It's actually closer to going to the power generating station and connecting directly to the source of power. If you're on we're on this end of the transmission line, sometimes the power goes out, right? A tree limb falls, or a lightning strike occurs, or somebody runs into a power pole and the transformer comes off. These kind of things happen to interrupt the power. It's not coming to church to get your batteries charged. It's being in constant connection with God, where you are constantly supplied by His power, because that is adequate. Your own will fail you from time to time. Boldness, despite suffering, is something that we don't process well, but it's another powerful understanding. Jesus Christ suffered more than you and I ever will, and yet maintain that boldness. But then we say, well, yeah, but He was God. And I'm not. You understand that all but one of the original 12 apostles was martyred for their faith. They suffered. There were people that literally gave their life in slow, agonizing, painful ways in order to perpetuate the news of the gospel. And you and I, have a hard time staying bold in the face of suffering. We read stories of missionaries from years ago, and the things that they endured to see others come to an understanding of who Jesus is. Our walk with Christ in the country today, where we are still free to practice our faith and really not marginalized nearly as much as believers are in many parts of the world, we don't know suffering. We really don't. There may come a day when we do, but staying bold and focused and energetic and passionate about ministry in the face of suffering, it is something that we don't process well because we don't have to. It's still okay to be a believer. Now, if you looked at Facebook, you might feel otherwise. But I have maybe twice in my entire life, and I'm frequently offering to pray with people, okay? It's just, I do that a lot. And only twice in my entire life have I had anyone say, that's all right, or no thank you, or no. Only twice can I remember that happening. Still, okay. I've had people say, oh, if you want to, and well, I want to, so we're going to do that. It's a powerful thing. But staying bold in the face of opposition is something that we need to do. And we need to remember where the call comes from. God is going to call us to do certain things. Guaranteed. God is going to call us to do certain things. Do you think for 1 minute He is going to call you to do something and then not equip you to do it? I mean, really? If God is going to call you to do something, He will be there to see you through. He will provide for you the resources necessary to do what He calls you to do. So remember where the call comes from. It didn't come from you. It didn't come from me. It came from God. And He is going to equip you to do what He calls you to do. So we trust Him. Not just a little bit. Not just mostly. Not to a large degree. Completely. Individually, we trust that God will keep His word because He does. Always keep His word. And we need to trust as a church that God will do for us what He says He will do. And He will equip us to do what we know we are called to do. We have opportunities each and every day. The deacons are meeting later, after the Sunday school today. And we'll talk about, some plans and that sort of thing. And I don't know of any major plans coming up. A couple of things that we'll talk about. But, what if a ministry idea popped up and we all thought, wow, that sounds like a really good idea, but I don't know how we'd ever pull that off. Wow, I really feel like God wants us to do that, but I don't know. Guess what? I don't know, guys, when we meet today, if something comes up in conversation and we think, well, that's something we really ought to do, don't follow it up with, but I don't know how we make it happen. Let's agree. Again, I don't have any ideas, okay, so don't blame me if something comes up in the deacons meeting. Or if something comes up in the business meeting next Saturday night, and we say, boy, that'd be a wonderful idea, an opportunity for our church, but I don't know if we should do that because resources are limited. Let's agree that we hear that idea and we feel God is tugging us to do something in that direction, and you say, that does sound like something God wants us to do. How are we going to make that happen? How are we going to open ourselves and let God work through us? How about you as an individual? Boy, I know God really wants me to tell my coworkers about Christ. God really wants me to evangelize my family. God really wants me to take a moment and make that phone call to that person that I know doesn't have a relationship with Christ. God really wants me to take that person to lunch and talk to him about Jesus. But let's take the but out. And let's seize the opportunities each and every moment, each and every day that God gives us, that we trust Him. That He calls us to do something and He's going to be there to see it through. And we're not doing it anyway. He's doing it and we get to be used by Him in the process. That's the resource that's available to us, and that's what happens if we open ourselves and truly fan the flame of faith within ourselves and seek to fan that flame in the lives of others. Let's pray. God, for this opportunity to open your word together and to hear from you and to think about what it is you call us to do, we are grateful. I pray for each one here today, God, that as we desire, I believe, each one to be faithful, that you will equip us going forward to do your work and your will in the world. We thank you, God, for the love that you revealed to us through Christ. We thank you for the challenge that you give us. And we thank you for the promises that you give us that you will be there each step of the way to see us through to the end, to doing what you ask us to do. God, if there's anyone here today that is not yet sure of their connection to Christ, they're not sure about their salvation, that today would be the day they make that step of faith and pledge their obedience to Christ and to Christ alone. And if there's anyone here today, God, that is questioning their own call to more and more committed ministry, that today will be the day as well, that they step forward in faith and obedience and follow you, no matter the cost. Be with us all, God, as we seek to live out the word that we receive and make a difference for the cause of Christ in the world that we live in, as we offer this prayer in Jesus' name.